welcome back to Study Room. After a chapter on tsunami, it's time to read a poem titled Geography Lesson. Today we are all about socials, right? From tsunami to geography lesson. So let's see what this poem has in store for us today. About the poet. Born in 1935, Zulfikar Ghosh is an American-Pakistani poet, novelist and essayist. So poet is basically the one who writes poem is called poet. Novelist, the one who writes novels, is called novelist. And the one who writes essays is called an essayist. So this man, Zulfikar Ghosh, born in 1935, can write poems, novels and essays. That's why he's a poet, novelist and essayist. So right now we will be reading his poem, Geography Lesson. Although he's more popular for his novels and essays in the genre, so genre is basically the theme or how movies are: action, romance, mystery. So the genre, it's magical realism. He has written some poems like Geography Lesson, which talks about places and people. So as we can understand from the title itself, it's about places, people and everything. So let me revise about the poet. He's born in 1935. Zulfikar Ghosh. He's a Pakistani-American poet, novelist and essayist. Even though he's known for his novels and essays, he has written poems about places and people like the one we are reading today, Geography Lesson. Theme of the poem. Geography Lesson starts off as a straightforward poem about how a city looks when you fly above it in a jet, but the poem probes further into the question of why civilization is built the way it is and why people behave the way they do. That day also we were reading the poem The Ant and Cricket. You all need to understand that these poems have a deep symbolism and meaning attached to it. So even this poem, even though it's a straightforward poem, so straightforward is basically simple to understand, all clear and simple. It's about how a city looks when you fly above it. So when you're traveling in an aeroplane and when you see out from your window, you see a different thing. You see lights, you see buildings and small miniatures. So this is about how a city is looking when you fly above it. But the poet goes deep inside to ask, why was this civilization made? Civilization is basically why has this infrastructure, new modern smart cities have come. So why is this built and why people behave the way they do? Okay. Let's read the poem and then we will get into the deeper meanings. When the jet sprang into the sky, basically sprang is when the jet flew into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile. So when the jet flew in the air, it was very clear that why has it been developed so much? 6 inches scale is basically where the flight of the aeroplane was. There seemed an inevitability. So inevitability is basically what you cannot avoid. About what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned and without style when the jet sprang into the sky. So basically when the jet flew 6 inches to the mile, you could see the ground that looked haphazard, basically all confused, chaotic, here and there, unplanned, without style, when the jet sprang into the sky. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. So as the flight grew higher and higher, the poet could find more reasons of why the cities had made civilizations. So it was clear why the country had cities where rivers ran and valleys were populated. Populated is basically filled with people. And the logic of geography that land and water attracted man was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. So, in geography, we say that the land and water is what attracts man, right? But the author says that as he reached above the sky 10,000 feet, he could see that going vanishing. He could see that geography is going false. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and it had more sea than land. So you know what we read in geography, that sea is more in land and earth. So when this jet was at 6 miles high, we could feel that earth was round because everything was in circle. But then we could also realize that it was sea more than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill. So as the poet stood there up above, he could not understand why we people are hating each other, building enmities, doing wars, making walls across cities, because everything was so neat and nice. From that height, it was not clear why. So this was the poem. Let me read it again for you. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had, seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile. There seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned and without style when the jet sprang into the sky. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography that land and water attracted man was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. Now, as we went through the poem, I explained you a few things, but in a deep, the poet is describing his experience of traveling in an airplane. The poet says that as it slowly took off from the ground, he could see the city scaling 6 inches to the mile. The poet felt that when he was on the ground, it was certain that city had developed very haphazard. There was no planning, nothing. It was all very disturbed. However, when he reached the sky, he noticed the patterns. He started seeing the beauty. He started seeing why there was a planning needed, why civilization was needed. At the height of 6 miles, he's able to see a much larger area because, he's gone to 10,000 feet. Now he can see broader perspectives. At this time, he sees that earth is round and has more water than land. While he understood all this, he could not figure out still that why human beings hate each other. Especially, we are so small compared to the larger universe. So, in this one line, the poet has told us what human beings have done to this planet. They had brought hate to each other, and they have made this universe, comparing to the larger universe, they have just made it more. Key terms: delineated means shown, haphazard is without plan or order, inevitable, that cannot be avoided. So now we have the questions time. Find 3 or 4 phrases and stanzas 1 and 2 which are likely to occur in a geography lesson. So I'll give you 2 examples and the rest 2 are on you. So one is that, man is attracted to land and water. And one more is sea and land. Okay, so sea is more than land. And earth is round. Seen from the window of an aeroplane, the city appears haphazard, neat, developed as necessary. So, at different miles he could feel. When he was at lower distance, he could feel haphazard. Then when he went up, he could see neat. And he felt that it is developed where it had to be. Which of these statements in the poem which give example of the logic of geography? So, cities appears as they are not. It is difficult to understand why humans hate and kill each other. The earth is round and it has more sea. There are cities where there are rivers. Third and fourth point, right? Which is what we have taught about logic of geography. Mention two things that are clear from height and not clear from the height. So two things that are clear from the height are that why human beings are hating each other and that there's sea more than the land. But not clear from the height is basically again why humans hate each other, and why is the civilization done developed necessary or they're still haphazard. Now let's do a quick revision before we wrap up the poem for today. The poet observes the earth as he flies in a jet airplane, moving from 6 inches to the height difference of a mile. He notes that it is clear the city has developed without any order. He notices patterns when the jet reaches 10,000 feet of the ground. Now he can see that the cities in a country are near the rivers and that the population is always highest in the plains. This he calls the logic of geography. Finally, when the jet is 6 miles high, he sees that the earth is round and there is more sea than land, meaning human population is overall less. Because of this, he cannot help but wonder why humans hate and fight each other, when their existence itself is rare compared to the rest of the universe. So this is it for today, guys. See you all in the next class, next chapter. Bye-bye.